What's going on, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. I hope that everybody is having a lovely evening. So I'm getting caught up on last week's episode, and then I'll get caught up on the episode from the Real Housewives of Atlanta that aired yesterday. But let's go ahead and get into this chapter one reset, recap, and review. So I love the opening scene where Shamia is explaining to her daughter that, the Lord loves a cheerful giver, and she has boxes upon boxes of donations to help the people of Grenada after they were hit by a hurricane. So Shamia asked all the ladies, since they were going to go down to Grenada for their group trip, if they could give some donations, and everyone agreed. So Kelly is there helping Shamia, and Cynthia comes and she brings her donations as well. Portia, she said that she just wrote a check and gave $1,000. All that is fine and good. And I think that, Brittany coming here with the box and Shamia shading her, saying that, that box is bare naked because it was like 3 rolls of paper towels. I think that what people are so upset about, not even necessarily even upset about, but it's the fact that Brittany has repeatedly um, spoken on how much money she and her husband supposedly have, right? So, even her tagline, I'm pretty and paid, so of course it's going to be shade. And just her actions are the complete opposite. But, that saying that like wealth whispers. So when you have something, and that it's almost like with anything, right? People's insecurities are very loud. If you listen and just really listen to people sometimes, the one thing that they continuously and consistently boast on, like I feel like Donald Trump is a perfect example, right? Like he's always talking about how he's so intelligent, he's a stable genius, this, that, and the other. But the cognitive test that they gave him the first term, I don't even think they'll probably test him this time, showed that he was not at the genius level, right? A lot of people were saying that he was reading and his vocabulary is stunted at a very elementary, foundational level. So, in my mind, every time I hear Donald Trump talk about how intelligent he is or, what a genius he is, et cetera, I feel like that's an insecurity of his. Same with Brittany. I feel like she is constantly, consistently talking about how much money she has, and her actions they just prove the opposite of that. So anyway, she gives the 3 paper towel rolls, which is fine. It's a donation. But then she goes and she's trying to explain away the foolishness at the golf charity event or the golf course event that she had, and she was just trying to deflect and blame everything on her event planner. And again, right? Nothing was planned, and she didn't even have enough money to feed her guests. But yet, you're constantly and consistently talking about how much money you have. That's the issue I feel like a lot of people, myself included, have with Brittany. If she wasn't so annoying and braggadocious, it wouldn't be an issue. So, next scene, we have Drew sitting down with Portia, and they're at a coffee shop. They both get tea. And while they're drinking their tea, they're trying to spill each other's tea. Okay. So they're sitting down and pretty much just taking pot shots back and forth at each other in regards to, who they're dating. And, first when they get there, Portia lets everybody know. And I feel like, again, her defenses are she's like really insecure about her hairline and her businesses, because she's like, that's not go naked hair. And the producers are like, well, Drew said it is. And they point to, Drew's, her Instagram post. And she's like, it's a mixture. So they sit down And Drew says that she's hoarse, so she wants to get like the turmeric ginger tea, um, and Portia gets the mint tea. But anyway, they start talking about, like who the other person is dating. Um, you know, she's asking her about her supposed boyfriend, Black. And Drew rebuts with, well, I'm not dating him. I'm going through a divorce. And she's like, I mean, I could ask you just as easily about you dating Future. Although Bravo did bleep his name out because I'm sure with all the lawsuits that Bravo has, including Britt Eady's, they don't need that smoke. But anyway, so Portia, she's like, Future? I've never even met Future. At this point, we don't know. We don't know what to believe when it comes to Portia. Um, you know, like I said, I used to think that Portia was just like clueless, but now I'm starting to think that that's not an act. That's just like a persona that she's taken on. Maybe half and half, right? But I do believe she does know who Future is, and whether they're dating or not, who knows? But I'm sure Drew didn't just pull that out of the air. So the waitress comes back and she's like, "Oh, what kind of tea is this?" And she's like, "Oh, she got you the black tea." Like, y'all are so shady. Y'all know that girl asked for the turmeric ginger for her throat. And Portia's in her confessional, like, no, no, waiter, you have it right. She needs the black tea. They are hilarious. So I will say I agree with Drew when she says, that I'm going through a divorce, and she's like, and you are too. You're going through a divorce. You should have seen, Portia's face was like, oh, like Drew clocked in, and she's clocking her teeth because I feel like that's what people are tuned in for, and they wanted Portia to open up about her real life and her transparency about not being able to film in the house, that Simon is now in ICE custody. All these things are way more important than what Portia's talking about, but she might not be ready to share that aspects of her life yet because it is really raw and it's going on in real time. But um Portia, again, she walks out and she's like, these bees aren't going to get my time. Portia runs from like every confrontation. That's why I said, like, I don't think that she's ready or willing to talk about what's real that's going on in her life. She can, try to spill everybody else's tea, but when it comes to her own, she's like, she clams up. Okay, so the next scene is all of the ladies packing up and getting ready to go to Grenada. And listen, Britt does have a lovely home. Word on the curb is that, her and her husband were renting it. I don't know. After this potential lawsuit with Bravo, who knows? They might be able to pay for it in cash. Or even, if her and Angela get close ever, maybe she can help pull Angela out of, the $2 million debt that she's in and buy a home from her. Who knows? I don't think that she would, but it would be a nice gesture. Um, So Shamia's mom she gives her a Bible, low, travel size, because that's always a good idea when you're traveling. And we don't know if that Bible ever made it to Grenada or not because Shamia's bags are lost, but we'll get there. So then we go to Kelly, and Kelly tells her girls that she's going to miss the first day of school, which is heartbreaking. Her kids are so cute. They're like, who's going to take us to school? And um, her publicist Lamont, she says that he stepped up and he has become like family, so he's going to take the girls to school. Kelly has 4 girls. She has a set of twins, and then she has 2 older girls. And so, because they're all different ages, they go to 3 different schools. So Kelly goes downstairs, and she's talking to Lamont and her friends in the kitchen, and she's like, telling them the routine. You have to first take the older ones or drop the twins off first, and then the other 2 girls. And so he's like, oh, okay. So what time do they need to be at school? She's like 7 o'clock. Oh my God. And I don't know if y'all know about Atlanta traffic, but baby, he gonna have to leave his house at like 5:15. maybe like maybe his house at like 4:45 and the girl's house at 5:15. I don't know if he's gonna stay there with them or not. But anyway, so he's like, And how long are you going to be down there? When you coming back? She's like, 4 to 5 days. Oh man. But she said she just has so much going on. And so Lamont says that last night he talked to Mark. He FaceTimed her ex-husband. And so she's like, really? You know what? And she was expecting, of course, good news because, again, one would think that if Lamont brought Mark's name up, that it would be something at least semi-positive. Child, no. He said that when, he talked to him and tried to get Mark to do the right thing, to step up and be there for his own girls, his children. And Mark was just like, no, just no. I never can understand for the life of me. I really don't. Um, how some parents can just be so heartless and so cruel. These are your babies. Like, these are your flesh and blood. These are your children. Like, you help create new, their lives, souls, human beings, right? That are walking around half of your DNA. I couldn't even like treat my dogs like that. But anyway, so Kelly was, essentially upset, and understandably so, that the man that she chose to marry and, bring forth children with into this world, he just turned his back and abandoned all of them. So she's like, well, I'm really glad that I have my village and my support system in Lamont and other people to step up while she needs to go on this trip to Grenada for work. And she's crying. She's like, you don't have to do right by me, but you need to do right by them because they're your girls. And again, it's just it's so sad. It's heartbreaking. It reminds me of like Brian McKnight, like just how cruel he is to the children that he had from his first wife. Rest in peace, Nico McKnight. I was going back and forth whether or not I was going to make a video about it, and I just might, but it's really sad. All right, so the next scene is the ladies get to the airport and they're, getting ready to board their flight. And they're talking about, Phaedra being the newest addition. And Phaedra is throwing shade at Angela, saying that, that she looks old, like she's the oldest young person that she's ever seen. I'm just like, Phaedra, we knew you back with your original face, Miss Ma'am. So not too much on my girl Angela. But anyway, they get to the island and it is gorgeous. Okay, they have, the well, first, even before when they get to the island, they realize that Shamia lost her bag. Her bags are still in Atlanta. And one thing I will say is, just from my cousin used to work, at an airport, and I've had this experience myself. If people think that you have money, like, I feel like that's the worst thing, because Shamia, her husband Gerald is the wealthiest out of all of them. Shamia is the wealthiest housewife. If people think that you have money, they will purposely delay your luggage to try to, go through it or whatever. So it's not always good to, be flexing and everything. But anyway, she had a carry-on, so she was fine essentially for the trip. But I don't know if she ever did get her bag back, because I'm telling you, that's why I'm like, wealth, true wealth, it whispers, because you do not want that target on your back. So Phaedra is in her confessional talking about Drew, because people are saying that Drew pretty much has beef with everybody. I mean, that's what Kelly said. I don't know. I feel like Drew is somebody, she doesn't always tell the truth, and she says things that makes people uncomfortable, like, the comment she made about the royalties she had with Dennis would pay for PJ's college, and then Shamia picked up that bone and ran with it. I don't know. I feel like she is somebody who makes people upset, even if she doesn't have malicious intent. So, chapter one, this is the reset. You guys remember on A Different World, and Debbie Allen's character, she was a psychologist with Jasmine Guy with Willie, and she was telling her to relax, relate, release. She was like, repeat it, relax, relate, release. That's what I feel like this this reset, I think like that goes in that same vein. But they get there, and they have like the performers on stilts, and they have the music going, and I love the vibe of the Caribbean. Like, I've never been to Grenada, but I've been to other Caribbean islands, and it's just so laid back and warm and welcoming and just chill and beautiful. The water is gorgeous. Oh, I love it. Um, so Shamia talks about how she, loves the game shot o'clock, and she's having all the ladies take, different shots of tequila. They're getting checked into their rooms. The villa is gorgeous, and they have a chef, their own private chef there. So it's amazing. Kelly's welcoming everybody to Grenada, and the ladies get settled into their rooms. So um, for whatever reason, I feel like Drew was always ending up with a short stick with the brooms, right? She ends up with the twin beds, and even Portia in her confessional, she was like, Drew ain't did nothing to nobody but me. Talking about, her working with Dennis. So she's like, justice for Drew. I'm like, I know that's right. Justice for Drew. So she arm wrestles Cynthia for the nice room with the king size bed. And even though Drew wins the arm wrestle match, she ends up giving the nice bed to Cynthia, which I thought was really sweet, right? Because Cynthia, she's a model, she's very tall and statuesque, and she is older. So I thought, see, that's what I mean. Like, everybody tries to villainize Drew, but I feel like she really does have a heart of gold. She steps in it a lot, but I don't even think that that's her intention. I feel like Drew is just largely misunderstood, to be honest. So Cynthia and Drew on the patio, and they're talking about, Cynthia's Amsterdam friend who, we saw him. They were caught in the garage and by TMZ. He's really tall, he has gorgeous skin, he has long dreadlocks, he's younger. So Cynthia said that, she loves the fact that the time they spend together is very lively. So I love that for Cynthia, right? Especially after dealing with the likes of Peter Thomas, who was just, like a scammer. I don't even know if Peter is still out and about, if he's free, but we know that whole Bar One situation. He had the audacity to say that the FB or the IRS wasn't gonna get their money, and the IRS, they're like, okay, well, you ain't got to worry about it. We'll get it out of sweat equity, which is in prison, which is horrible because Peter is like, he has to be in his 60s. Like, oh my goodness, this is not Jamaica, Peter. You have to pay your bills here. Anyway, so, but yeah, they're talking about how Cynthia's new friend in Amsterdam keeps her very happy, which I love that for her. So the ladies get to dinner, and the dinner, it's beautiful. But of course, no housewives dinner would be complete without them just continuously carrying up old stuff. So, Shamia's talking about the laptop comment, and she's talking about how Drew, said that she was going to use the royalties to pay for Pilar's college. And again, I don't think that Drew had malicious intent when she said that. I think that she was excited about the revenue that her song was going to bring. Because Dennis is, Pilar's father. She was talking about Dennis and, him making money, not necessarily throwing shade at Portia, but again, that's how, Shamia took it back to Portia. So, then Portia's upset, and she's just, the whole dinner, in my opinion, was just a mess. She was talking about how, just it was inappropriate. And so Angela was explaining to Shamia that every time she has a conversation with Shamia, that she does take it the wrong way. And I feel like, Shamia is somebody who a lot of people didn't see her real personality in earlier seasons because she was a friend of, with Portia. But now it's like she is not as um she's not casted in a positive light as she was, I feel like, in previous seasons. Like, I don't know if it's because she's going through a whole lot, with her family and, her daughter's health, but a lot of the things that have come out recently have not been so positive, unfortunately, for Shamia. So, anyway, that's the end of the episode. The ladies, are at dinner. They are going to just pretty much squabble like they always do. Um, but the next episode is when they meet the prime minister, so I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care, aces. Bye.